It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, March 12th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is a little steamed about this Tort suspension and fine, but we'll see how that affects the game against the Sharks.
It ain't great.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can find our show over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Russ, of course, as per usual, the suspension was announced after we recorded our Monday show. We knew it could be coming, but 2 games and $50,000, like, that seems excessive given what happened.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think, again, we know it's because he didn't listen to the refs. I mean, I get it. Torts had some points there. No question. He wanted an explanation. He didn't get it. That's fair. But he also knows that he has to vacate the bench. And that's where he let his temper get the best of him. And, so like listening to his press conference today, well, as we tape, he's not that remorseful. And like, he's like, well, I'm in the building. It's like, okay, but these are 2 games that, you're only, you're just ahead of the competition here. Like, it wasn't a great time to, get suspended.
No, so of course we have tonight's game against the Sharks and then Thursday's game against the Leafs, which is going to be a pretty huge game without Torts on the bench. And Dan Hilferty, who we've had on the show, said that he would be willing to pay Torts' fine, that he was also that upset by the lack of explanation for what was going on there and for the officiating in general, especially that call against Ronnie Attard.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Totally
It was a
get it.
bad call. Yeah, I get it too. I think that's the right thing to do by Dan, and that's why, Dan's a stand-up guy.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, Torts was going to try and push that off, and he did to some degree during the media availability. We need to focus on the San Jose game, and that he'll be a part of the planning. He'll be in the building, like you said, for the game, but just not on the bench. So, along those lines, wanted to talk a little bit about the blue line because, as we saw in the last game, they played with 5 defensemen because Zamula was sick. They recalled Adam Ginning on an emergency
Wherever he was
basis.
like Waldo. Where's
I
Waldo?
know.
Where's Ginning?
So he was back in town for practice
I wish we
yesterday.
could kind of draw a map and use it as part of the show. Like where was he? Oh, here he was here. Then he was last seen there, and it's crazy.
Yeah, but Torts did say that they will have 6 defensemen versus the
He almost
Sharks.
guaranteed that. That's true. That was
He
it's kind of
did.
it was almost comical. Like I chuckled a little when that happened.
Yeah, given that Travis Sanheim had a maintenance day in practice
Which I'm
yesterday.
still dubious about. I am, because maintenance day is fine, but also he was banged up. So now
Yes.
where does that leave the team? We don't know. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to play, but again, this is the whole thing. I'm sure there's a bigger conversation to have about how banged up we expected this defense to get this year, no matter who was on it.
Correct. And I think that, we did talk about the emphasis on shot blocking and that was going to lead to some injuries down the road. We've also said that, for at least a significant portion of the season, they were doing a really good job of balancing the shot blocking style with a more, breakout focused style, and getting sticks in there and stuff. But still, if you're even going to shot block a little bit as part of your strategy, it's going to take its toll. So, Torch talked about Sealer still being out and Risto still being out, but that they're still going to try and play the same way, even if there's new people in the lineup, like Addard, like Jennings.
Right. I mean, look, they will occasionally try and do some fast play and some good breakouts that way, but it's going to be limited, and it's going to be more shot blocking. Like that's really, if you have Mark Stahl and Eric Johnson in there, Eric Johnson can sort of pass your way out, Stahl every once in a while, but it's mostly going to be shot blocking. Like we have, and to be honest, I don't think they're 50-50 shot blocking and playing fast. I just think, like, I don't think you could break up the two, because I think you can play fast all the time and still block more shots than most teams in the league. And I think that's what they've been doing.
Right. And, you see that. I don't know if it's still the case because he's been out, but Sealer was leading the league in
Right.
shots blocked, the day he signed that contract extension.
Yeah. And now he's hurt.
So,
And it's because he's blocking shots. He got hurt blocking a shot.
right. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, whether Zamula is healthy enough to come back in to the game. And if there's 6 or there's 7, we'll see, depending on what he decides to do. My guess is that if Zamula's ready, he'll check in and Jennings will sit in the press box.
Right.
But you need to have Jennings there just in case. And then, we talked about
Good
last
news
time.
is they're not going to play 7.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, like, I don't
Right.
think they'll play 7,
No, I
but
don't
if
think they will either.
right, right. It's possible, but not likely. But the part I was getting at was that, I don't think that you want Johnson and Stahl together like we talked about last time, and how are they gonna balance that out when ideally you kinda want Addard and Jennings together if that's who's playing. But if it's Zamula, I think you can work out a way to break that up a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, ideally, I would want what we just talked about and sit Mark Stahl, but he's not going to do that. And so it's like, okay, I mean, this is, coach's choice, but our preference would be to do the latter because they had a good game. Like they were good together. But
Right.
we're not going to see this, Rachel. We're just not allowed to see it.
Well, I would hope that if there's the opportunity, they would take this Sharks game in particular to sit either Johnson or Stahl
Right.
and set up the D that way. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Certainly against the Leafs, I don't see it happening. But
No.
against the Sharks, I
Sharks
think
would
it's
be
a
the
good
time.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of the game against the Sharks, it's going to be very important because the Isles have now won 6 games in a row, getting super close to the Flyers, only 2 points down with 2 games in hand. So every win is going to be important here. Like I said yesterday, there's no 4-point games this week. So you just got to rack them up.
It's hard. It's very hard when a team is being pursued. When you're that team that's being pursued, it's hard. It's hard to stay in there. And so there's a lot of pressure. And that's what, players can talk about it, say, oh, there's no pressure, whatever. But there is. There's pressure to stay in that playoff spot. Whereas the Islanders, everybody thought they were out of it. They could do it's us against the world thing. Patrick Waugh has certainly done a good job of rallying the troops. And now it's kind of like, oh, yeah, look, we're like right there. And they don't have the injuries. That's the other thing. It's like, that's where you wish the Flyers, if they'd have really looked at things, would have been sitting Couturier a little bit, would have been checking on guys' minutes once in a while. I mean, they did what they could in game, but sometimes you just have to have guys miss games. And I just feel like they didn't do enough of that to prepare for all of this.
Yeah, I would say on the plus side, I mean, Travis Sanheim, they did recognize that there was an issue and did do things to mitigate that. So I will give them
Right.
credit for that. I think there
Yeah.
there are some cases where they did and some cases where they didn't.
Right.
But I think they're with
But even Cam
Couturier.
York now, like, we got to start checking in on Cam York. Like, you're getting to the
Yeah.
point where now he's asked to play top line, top pairing. Now he's playing probably 3 minutes a game more than he's used to. This is, at the 3-quarter mark of the season. It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do have that Sharks game coming up, and we also had a pretty solid weekend for the Phantoms. We're going to talk about both of those things coming up next. It's a very important point in the season. The team is in the thick of the playoff hunt, but regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football when they're in season on Sleeper, and entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether NHL superstars like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, or Austin Matthews, plus Flyers standouts like Tyson Forster will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail those picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. On tomorrow's show, we will, of course, talk about the Sharks game we're about to preview. We'll also be answering your mailbag questions, so get them in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a DM on Twitter, or comment over on YouTube. We're also going to talk a little bit of Oliver Bonk, so get caught up with him and how his season is going as we reach kind of the end of it for the OHL. Um, as it goes with the San Jose Sharks, I think, the biggest thing from a Flyers perspective is we all know what happened in November when we last saw them. The San Jose Sharks had not yet won a game in the NHL season thus far, and the Flyers were the unfortunate first victim of the Sharks
Yeah, the
this season.
outcry on Twitter or X was massive.
Absolutely massive. They have now won 16 games this season, so it wasn't just us. Hooray.
Right.
But not good for the Sharks, let's say.
No, no. You know, this will be one where, was that just an unfortunate thing? Is there a style issue here that we're just unaware of that is going to pop up again? Anything's possible. That's why with sports, you just never know. Like David Quinn will be pinning this one in the locker room that, hey, nobody says we could win. Everybody's counting us out. Let's show them. And, these guys are still professional athletes, even though they're lacking in offense. It's obvious. And their defense is meh. But you know what? Again, you just kind of wonder. And look, John Tortorella will be in the building. He was at practice. But there is something to be said to having him behind the bench, too, giving the guys the extra push or the extra yell or whatever he's going to do. Because that's not going to happen now. The other two, they don't operate like Torts. They're more cerebral. There's a little bit of talking. Sure, there has to be, but it's different. And so you do kind of wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. The Sharks look very different than they did when we saw them last. There's 7 new guys were in the lineup
Yeah.
for the Sharks last game versus what we saw in November. Obviously, the big deal at the trade deadline was trading away Tomas Hertl to Vegas. So he is no longer there. Plus, they have a metric ton of injuries. Logan Couture is out for the season.
He only
Our old
played
pal
6 games this year. Like
yeah,
I'm worried about Couture now. He's a great guy. Like I've known him since he was a draft prospect, and he really turned into a big time star in this league. And now he's really going through rough times. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think, that is a real tough one. Our old pal Oscar Lindblom is
Mhm.
on IR for them, so that's kind of a bummer.
That
We
stinks
won't
for
get
him.
to see him. And the goaltender that was in net in November, Mackenzie Blackwood, is on IR. They acquired Vitek Vanacek, who was already on IR before they got him. Matt Benning is on IR, so they are pretty busted.
They are like, who's going to play in that? Like who do we think?
Well, I mean, I think it'll probably be Corona, but I don't know.
It's funny.
Yeah, we'll
Fair
see.
enough.
We'll see what yeah, so we'll see what they do there, but they did win their last game against the Sens. Now it is the Sens, and they're their own tire fire,
True.
but, I think that, that's something. It is absolutely something. It's something to build on with the new lineup for them. So I would caution about being too overconfident in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. Definitely get the first goal. It would help a lot in this game. Uh, don't be overconfident. Eklund, Zetterland, Granlund are pretty good players, and they have other complementary players. Um, so I think there are some guys that have had down seasons, but they're still like offensively talented. And so, yeah, just don't let those guys sort of, control the game at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. The Sharks do have a couple of stats where they match up okay with the Flyers. Most of them they do not. Let's be clear with their
Right.
negative 111 goal differential.
Yeah.
But their shooting percentage of shots on goal, Sharks are minutely better, like just microscopically better than the Flyers, but we kind of knew that about the Flyers shooting percentage, so it makes sense. They're actually pretty close to each other on face-off percentage, and they're both mid-league. So
Yeah.
there's that. So it's getting the good matchups for those face-offs and maybe get some set plays going. But I think that they're just gonna have to play it pretty tight.
Yeah. Play it pretty tight. Just, like I said, no big gaffes. Is this going to be Sandstrom in net or is it going to be Ursan?
Yeah, really good question. Don't know as of recording, but
Feels like it should be a Sandstrom game.
it does. It does. But we shall see if he wants Urson have a chance to get back on the horse before the Leafs game. That's going to be the
Yeah.
question.
Right.
So we will see how that plays out. But in the meantime, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms had, I would say, a good but not great weekend. They were
Hmm.
2-1, but I think they rebounded really well from that first loss that they had on Friday. It was another 3 games in a row weekend for them, which is always tough
Yes.
to battle. And I think last weekend we talked about them, just barely holding it together on the Sunday game where it was that weird, like, just both goalies got a shutout. And this time they managed to pull out a win in the Sunday game, which was
They
a,
did.
3rd and 3, and that was really good. But they split against Wilkes-Barre Scranton and then won against the Bridgeport Islanders.
Yeah. I mean, right now, they're in a tough spot. They need a lot of weekends like this and probably some more undefeated ones. But we'll see. You never know what might spark something.
Yeah, they are still in 7th in the division, 17 games left in their season. They have 1 or 2 games in hand on the 2 teams above them in the standing, so it's not impossible, but
Right.
it's gonna be a really tough assignment for
Yeah.
them.
It'll be a battle.
With the injuries and lineup changes, a lot of turmoil with the Phantoms, given everything with the call-ups to the Flyers, trading Wade Allison, so this was, like, the first weekend without him around in the lineup. Um, Ollie Lixel's been sick, so even though he was sent back down, he wasn't, in the lineup all weekend, for the Phantoms, so they managed to have a weekend like this without some of these guys there and without Jennings there, who he only played in the Sunday game, so at least that was fresh legs, I guess. But,
Right.
um,
Matt
you
Brown
know
showed up though, and we were wondering where he was. Like I would have liked for him to have been playing all along, but we didn't even know
yeah.
where he was.
Right, so he was back in the lineup. Cooper Marody, who had been hurt, got back in the lineup. Um, but, Tanner Lazinski is still out. Elliot Denoye was out Friday, but he was back Saturday. So I think the other part of it is that, they went from having a cajillion forwards to then being short because of everything. And so Adam Karashik again, bless him, playing forward, even though
Right.
he's a defenseman. But I'm so, so happy for him because he got his first goal of the season on Sunday as
That's
a
nice.
forward.
Yeah, that's nice.
And so really happy for him.
Yep, that's cool. Like, he was thrust into emergency duty and made the best of it.
He did. He absolutely did. And the 2 wins that they got were in regulation, which was so important
Right.
for the
They needed
Phantoms
that.
in this playoff race because, most of the wins they had gotten recently were in extra time. They were in overtime or shootout,
Right,
and,
right.
so just these pure regulation wins,
Regulation wins matter towards the end of the season for sure.
they do, especially because like Hershey has already clinched a playoff spot because they're just so far and away above in the AHL in the East. So it is going to be tough, but we have a lot more to talk about. Samu Tuomaala, Emil Andre, and then I want to talk about Rhett Gardner and Brendan Furry, who are AHL stalwarts that I think are a really important part of this team right now. And we will do that coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league like Locked On NHL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe. So, Russ, Samu Tuomaala had been struggling pretty bad. We talked about him having, hit the wall, so to speak, of the longer
Right.
AHL season versus Europe. He hadn't scored in a month, like since before the All Star game that he went to. But he got back on the board this weekend with a goal and an assist on Saturday and an assist on Sunday. Pure snipe on the power play for the goal he had on Saturday. It looked really good. And he also had really great work behind the net to get it to Evan Polai for the fourth goal in that game. And I just think he was like, I think that invigorated him a little bit. And you could tell like the relief was palpable in his
Yeah.
celebration.
Yeah, because the numbers are not fantastic for him. I think he has 41 points, but when you break it down, he's getting 334 power play time a game. And I think that's most on the team. And it's a lot. And he's got 7 power play goals, which means he's only got 7 even strength goals, and he's averaging 13 minutes of 5-on-5. Now, here's the startling thing. And when I bring up Emil Andre, you'll be surprised, or maybe you won't. But he's only averaging 3.7 shots a game. I don't know why they're not having him shoot more. If he doesn't have the confidence, then that's something else. I believe he has the confidence, but they got
I
to
do
keep
too.
telling him. They have to keep telling him to shoot more because he's got to do that. That's what his game is, and so somehow he is not doing that enough. And so that's the biggest takeaway. That, and got to score more at even strength, because if you don't, it's going to show up when you go to the next level.
Right, and I think Emil Andre, this has been such a good season for
It
him
really
in
has.
terms of the learning curve of
Yeah.
North American pro hockey, because I think he has gained that confidence that you were just talking about. I think he's feeling more comfortable in different situations. I think he's kind of really learning because he does have all that speed, how to use it more effectively. And so I really think this has been such a great learning year for him with the Phantoms, especially, and that whatever bump in the road it was at the beginning of the year, when he was up with the Flyers, it was too soon. It was very
Right.
clearly too soon. That has evened itself out, and he's on the right path. And I think that, mid next season is probably the time where he should be start to think about calling him up again. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I think he'll just need, a good start to next season in order to consider that.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, again, just because he hasn't gotten called up lately, I don't want people to think he's not having a good year. Because I had a lot of people question me about it. Well, how's Andre doing? Do they, what do they think of him? And so he's averaging over 22 minutes a game. It's a lot.
Yep.
It's a lot. Now, 329's power play, but he's also playing penalty kill. 40%
Mhm.
of his shots are hitting the net thanks to Instat. That's where these stats are coming from. That's pretty damn good. Now, here's the part where he's having a good year, and this is the part where it shows a little bit of Tuomaala's inadequacy, and that's 4.1 shots a game. That's what he's averaging. Now, that's quite a bit. Now, again, he's on the power play a lot, so he is shooting a lot on the power play. So that's interesting. And then here's the other one: 1.09 hits a game. That's really good because we have to remember he's a smaller guy, but we keep trying to tell
Right.
people he is feisty and he will use his body when he has to. So these are good signs for when he is ready to hit the next level.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about when he's in all situations, right? He is
Yes.
getting a view into all aspects of being a pro defenseman, and I
Yes.
think that's just been huge for his development. I think, with Tuamala, I think that one of the things that helped him this past weekend is that he was on a line for 2 of those 3 games with Rhett Gardner and Brendan Furry, and I talk about them because not because I think they're gonna be NHL superstars, it's because they are the exact kind of guys I want to keep on the Phantoms moving forward,
Right.
to support the key prospects like a
Right.
Samu Tuomaala, right? Brett Gardner is one of the hardest working guys out there, and he just does whatever he's asked. He's moved up and down the lineup. He got a call up to the Flyers, at some point when they needed a body, and
I
it was well
remember. Yeah.
earned.
Yep.
You know, and I think that, Brendan Furry has gone from a guy with flashes to a more consistent player, and he's getting on the board more. And so you look at Gardner's weekend, 4 goals and 3 assists in 3 games. He's at 10 goals and 10 assists for the season. His top, scoring in the past was 10 goals, so he has an opportunity to beat
Okay.
that now. He scored both goals for the Phantoms in their loss on Friday, 2 goals on Sunday, 1 on the power play. He was the 3rd star of the night, for Sunday in the entirety of the AHL. So he was recognized by the league for that. And then Brendan Furry, a goal and 3 assists in 3 games. I cannot say enough good things about Brendan Furry and how much he has progressed this season. And again, I don't think he's an NHL player per se. He's on,
Right.
but I do think he's contributing significantly to this Phantoms team, and that I think he's 100% who I want on this Phantoms team moving forward.
Yeah, you need Phantoms lifers. I mean, we talked about that last season, and they definitely have a few of them now, and that's good. Uh, Now we have to just, get some of the prospects rolling a little better because really the list of guys who are really developing is kind of short, and I'd like to see it get better before the end of the year.
Yeah, and both Gardner and Furrier are under contract for 1 more season.
That's good.
Rick Gardner has an NHL contract that's a two-way. Brendan Furry has an AHL deal through next year, and depending on how next year goes for him, he could earn himself a two-way deal
Right.
as well, but I think he's somebody to keep an eye on, and I say this, like, out of all love and respect, but, Garrett Wilson, like, he is a leader, but at the same time, he got injured, in a fight and was out. He comes back in and then gets a game misconduct and is suspended for 3 games. And so, he was out Sunday. He'll be out the first 2 games of this upcoming weekend. And to me, like, I mean, it was a headshot too. And so to me, like, if you're a leader and you have the C on your jersey, you can't be out there giving headshots. I'm sorry.
No, no, you gotta control it. You gotta like understand where you are in the season, how important these games are. I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of these guys are stepping up. We've mentioned a few of them on this show, given that a lot of the guys are up with the Flyers now. Some guys are hurt. So, this is a next man up situation, as it often is in the AHL, and that's the nature of the league. I think Cal Peterson has settled a little bit. He's doing a lot better than he was, so that's a good sign. And we'll see how the Phantoms can do next weekend, which is another 3-3. It's going to be another big weekend for them. So, excuse me, it's like a 3-game week, but they're playing Wednesday at Wilkes-Barre Scranton. They're playing Friday and Saturday at Providence. So 3 road games this week. And, again, crucial time for the Phantoms.
Yeah, totally agree. Keep it rolling.
Absolutely. All right, that'll do it for today's show. On tomorrow's show, we will recap the Sharks game, talk some about Oliver Bonk, and get to your mailbag questions. As a reminder, you can send them in via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube. Plus, you can send those draft eligible prospect requests. We'll get to them as we get closer to the draft. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.